Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Scalping the S&P 500 Futures. This is day 5 of me trading the S&P 500. I will be giving commentary on the trades that I take and the thoughts behind each of my trade. If there's anything that you don't understand, feel free to comment below and I'll be more than happy to help you out. So let's begin with the chart. So this is the S&P 500 chart. Each bar represents 2000 ticks and I scalp for 1 point profit, which gives me about $50 if you trade one contract. I trade 3 contracts, so that's either $150 profit or $150 loss, as I've set my stop loss 1 point below. So today I started trading around 4 o'clock UK time, and the general trend for the day appears to be slightly bearish. However, there are big swings going both directions, so it can be a little tricky to trade. Hence why I drew so many trend lines to make sure I don't miss anything that could act as some form of resistance. In any case, we already have our first setup, a two-legged pullback to the downwards direction. So there's a few bearish bars here, a pullback and a second pullback forming here, and now we are just waiting for a bearish confirmation, which is right over here. Even though we have a bunch of buyers trying to push the price up, there are a lot more sellers indicated by this long thin line. So an ideal entry point is a tick lower than this bar. But because I just finished drawing the trend lines, I was a bit slow to take the trade. So by the time I reached the bar, the next bar has already started to drop. So I thought I would just wait for this next bar to finish forming before I place the sell stop underneath it. However, that bar dropped a massive amount of almost 2 points. So to be honest, the best thing to do there was just to look for another setup because it already moved too much. But I got a bit impatient and decided to place the sell stop anyways underneath that bar, which was a terrible idea as it resulted in a loss, which wasn't a good start. It's actually one of the worst things that could happen, as it can affect you for the rest of the day. So the reason why this was a terrible trade is because many of these sellers probably already made their profit and a lot of the buyers are already out for a loss, and the chances of it coming back down even further is pretty low, especially since this bar is actually bullish, as initially there was a sell-off and there was a strong pushback by all the buyers, creating this large line. So these kind of bars are called bullish pin bars when you have these long wicks at the end and a small body at the top. And a bearish pin bar would be the reverse of this. In any case, we're starting the day with a loss of $150. We saw my first loss on my yesterday's day trading video, which was episode 4, and how that had a huge impact on my trading style for the rest of the session. Emotional trading is never a good thing. So if this is the first time you made a loss, then it's a good idea to take a break for a couple of hours or even call it a day and come back the next day. In my case, I think I learned my lesson yesterday and have a bit more self-control. So I actually missed a trade here. There is a two-legged pullback towards upwards trend, but since the general trend for the day appeared bearish, plus we had this trend line that could be acting as a line of resistance, so I didn't want to take any risks, especially since I'm already down $150. So instead, I took the next two-legged pullback towards the downward trend. So we have a couple of bearish bars here, one pullback and then a second pullback here. It did travel quite a bit up, which is not entirely good, but there are two other confirmations that I had for this trade. So number one was that the general trend for the day appears to be downwards. So it was bound to come back down, especially after so many consecutive green bars, which is very similar to previous instances of bullish runs today. And number two, it's at the top of the trend line, which could act as a line of resistance where it will bounce off and come back down. So now I'm just waiting for a bearish bar to form. I kind of got caught out by this bar. I wasn't paying attention to the number of ticks left and thought it was going to close soon, but it turns out there was over 700 ticks left for this bar to close. So normally the best place of entry is a tick below the bearish bar, so that you don't get caught out if it doesn't go down and keeps going up. So I finally managed to recover my losses, and if you place the sell stop a tick below the bar like you're supposed to do, then you would have still made that 1 point scalp and made a profit, especially since it was a massive 3 point drop. So this continued to sell off for a few minutes when I found my next opportunity, which is a two-legged pullback again, but this time towards the upwards trend. So usually I don't take upward trades when the general trend appears to be bearish, but today you can see there were several short upward runs, so most likely that pattern will continue. So I decided to take this trade, but just to be safe, I was also looking out for additional confirmations before I took those trades. And in this case, there seems to be a line of support here, so I readjusted the trend lines to show this. So I placed a buy stop above this bar, which is still very close to the bottom of this trend line. There is a possibility that this has broken through this trend line and will just collapse further down, but that's why I placed the buy stop above this trend line, so that only if the price is bouncing back up, I will be entered into the trade and should make at least a 1 point movement before coming back down. So that was my second win for the day, bringing total profits to $150. And just a few minutes later, we have another setup. This one isn't the cleanest two-legged pullback, but I decided to take this two-legged pullback towards the upwards direction, only because there were additional confirmations again, which is this very strong trend line here. We have seen the bars bounce off this at least 4 times. So if it bounces off again, I was 99% sure that it would move up enough to make that 1 point scalp. Something else to point out here is that in both cases where I took the trades to an upwards direction, my entry point was also above the 21-day moving average line, which some people use as a line of support. I don't really use it often, but when I need some additional confirmation, it can give that extra peace of mind. So that was another win, bringing the total profits to around $300. So it's been about 40 minutes since the last trade, and there weren't really many good setups. And I kind of got used to the quick actions of the past 2 trading days, so I was getting a bit impatient. So I tried a different strategy to the usual two-legged pullback. So here we have the prices testing this upper trend line, and there is 2 things that could happen here. Either it will break through this resistance line and run all the way to the top, or it will bounce off this line again and come crashing down. So to be safe, I will enter a sell stop just underneath the trend line, so that if it does bounce off this line and comes down, then I'm pretty sure I will make that 1 point scalp. But if it starts moving upwards, then I can always cancel the sell stop as long as I haven't been entered into the trade. However, the price just broke through and went a massive 4 points up, so I cancelled the sell stop and just waited around for another setup to appear. So about another 10 minutes later, we have a two-legged pullback towards the upwards direction. At this point, there were many big upward moves and downward moves, so it seems to be more of a sideways day than either bullish or bearish. So I decided to take this two-legged pullback as well. Here we have one pullback and a second forming here. The very strong bullish bar, which is represented with this very long wick at the bottom. So I placed a buy stop a tick above this bar. It took a bit of effort for it to go up, but when it did, it broke through and traveled almost 3 points, giving us our 4th win of the day. So that's 4 wins and 1 loss, bringing us to $450. Since I have a bit more time left for the day, so I decided to observe the market a bit longer to see if there was any additional setup. So after a while, we had a two-legged pullback trap this time. I think this is our first trap today. So we have our usual two-legged pullback forming towards the downwards direction with several bearish bars, one pullback here and a second pullback forming here, after which all the new traders expect the price to collapse further down. However, this is at the bottom of this trend line, so it's slightly risky to take. Secondly, there's a lot of traders who bought here trying to push the prices up. So this bar is pretty bullish. Usually it might be an okay trade to take if the general trend was downwards, which I initially thought it was today, but as time went on it seems to be more of a choppy day going sideways. So to be safe, I placed a buy stop instead, a tick above this bar, and also made sure it's above the second trend line, just in case it acts as some form of resistance and the prices bounces off it and comes collapsing down. So if the prices do continue down, I won't be trapped in, but if it reverses, then we would have trapped all of those traders that sold here and hopefully push the prices up to make that 1 point scalp. So we got filled here and it took a few seconds of resistance, but in the end it managed to run through and make me that 1 point scalp. So that's 5 wins and 1 loss today, bringing a total of $600 for the day in just over 2 hours. Trading any longer would end up in me making many mistakes, so that was it for me for today. Total account size is now $4,662 in 5 days of trading. So if you enjoyed that, please remember to like this video and remember to subscribe for the next episode of day trading.